All right, it's the elephant in the room. It's the elephant in the room. Somebody asked Caitlin Clark about it during media day, and she finally gave an answer on this Raven Johnson situation and being teammates and potentially sharing the court together and building chemistry and things like that. Caitlin Clark finally addressed the elephant in the room.
Clark, a deep three.
Caitlin Clark exploded at Fever Camp. And no, not with words. She exploded with presence, because one awkward Raven Johnson moment on day one turned into a full-blown storm by day two, and the second that footage started spreading, fans knew this story was not dying quietly.
Camp media availability, Caitlin Clark making it very clear she wants to play, she's ready to play, she's capable of playing. And then Stephanie White making it very clear she's not going to have a superstar on this team. She's not. There is no me, it's we.
What looked like a tiny training camp interaction suddenly felt like the first warning sign of something bigger. Not just drama, not just social media noise, something bigger. Because when Caitlin Clark is involved, nothing stays small for long. And that is exactly why this blew up.
Of Raven Clark deciding she's not going to high-five Caitlin Clark. And this is exactly what the Indiana Fever have brought on this season. The fact is, if you do not draft this person, I'm not making this video right now. We're not talking about this. But the fact is, all eyes are going to be on both of these players. And the Indiana Fever have nobody to blame but themselves, not the fans. Not the unhappy fans that warned you the very second that you announced your pick at number 10, you're inviting drama.
The clip itself is simple. Players are moving through a normal high-five line. Routine stuff, automatic stuff, the kind of thing nobody ever talks about. Then Caitlin steps forward, hand ready, and Raven Johnson appears to step back, lower her head, and the contact never happens. That is it. No shouting, no confrontation, no obvious scene. But the energy of the moment breaks instantly, and sometimes that is all it takes. Because the second fan saw it, the internet split in half. One side said it was blatant disrespect. The other side said people were forcing a narrative out of nothing. But once Caitlin Clark is in the middle of a clip, there is no such thing as just a random camp moment anymore.
We all know there has been a bunch of nonsense surrounding this Raven Johnson selection. Me personally, I'm now rooting for Raven Johnson. I want her to play well with Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, as I do all the players on the team. But with the draft pick, there was a lot that came with that. There's a lot going on with South Carolina fans and Caitlin Clark fans online and stuff like that. People getting threatened, all types of stuff. It has gone way too far. Like, it's not that serious.
Every look gets replayed. Every movement gets slowed down. Every tiny detail gets treated like evidence. And that is where this stopped being a clip and started becoming a storyline. Because fans did not watch that moment in a vacuum. They watched it with everything Caitlin already brings into the room. The spotlight, the pressure, the attention, the division, the obsession. Caitlin is not just another player in camp. She is the center of gravity. She changes the temperature of the gym the second she walks in. So when something even slightly awkward happens around her, people do not shrug and move on. They start connecting dots. And that is why Raven Johnson became the center of this debate almost immediately. Fair or not, fans were never going to treat that clip like an isolated mistake. The second they saw that missed moment, they started reading into it. Tension, discomfort, resistance. Maybe even the early signs that not everybody inside that building is fully comfortable with how much Caitlin Clark changes the team the moment she steps on the floor. Now, does that one clip prove all of that? Number. But did it unlock that conversation instantly? Absolutely. And that is what made day two so important. Because day one got people talking. Day two made people stop. That is where this whole thing took a turn. According to the second transcript, the gym felt tighter on day two. The players looked sharper. The energy felt more alert. Even the warm-up did not feel normal anymore. Why? because now everybody knew the cameras were rolling, everybody knew the first clip was already out there, and everybody knew Caitlin Clark was walking right back into the middle of it. That kind of pressure changes a building before the ball even starts moving, and then Caitlin started playing. That is the real pivot in this story, because once the basketball kicked in, this stopped feeling like internet drama and started feeling like a warning. The transcript describes a stretch where Caitlin began controlling everything. The reads got quicker, the spacing got cleaner, the pace changed. A pass split open a gap that should not have been there. A pull-up created space instead of waiting for it. Possession after possession, the gym started reacting to her instead of the other way around. Not loud, not flashy, just complete control. And that kind of control does something to people. It makes them hesitate. It makes them second guess. It makes them feel the shift before they can even explain what changed. That is the explosion, not some emotional outburst, not some dramatic meltdown. The explosion was impact. The explosion was control. The explosion was watching one player bend the energy of the entire gym without needing to say a single word. And once that happened, the first clip started feeling heavier. Because now the question was not just, did Raven Johnson disrespect Caitlin Clark? Now the question became, what happens when the biggest star in the building is also the one taking over the building? That is when the pressure really starts. Because if you are a teammate, that changes everything. If you are a coach, that changes everything. If you are the Fever, that changes everything. Now every interaction gets watched differently. Every reaction gets judged differently. Every small moment gets stacked on top of the last one until fans feel like they are watching a pattern instead of a coincidence. That is how stories like this grow. Not because one clip proves everything, but because every next clip starts feeding what people already believe. And make no mistake, this is exactly the kind of story that can swallow a team early if they are not careful. Because training camp is supposed to be where chemistry gets built quietly. Instead, Indiana is trying to build chemistry while the entire internet is dissecting body language. That is a problem, because if camp already feels this tense, what happens when the real pressure starts? What happens when minutes get cut, touches get reduced, and somebody has to sacrifice? What happens when frustration is no longer just hypothetical? That is when little moments stop being little. That is when they come back. Now, to be fair, yes, there are people saying this whole thing is overblown. They think the clip got taken out of context. They think fans are reading too much into body language because Caitlin Clark is involved. And that is possible. This is not hard proof of some giant locker room war. But that does not make it harmless. Because sometimes perception becomes pressure long before the truth catches up. And in a situation like this, pressure changes behavior. Pressure changes chemistry. Pressure changes the way people move around each other. That is why this matters. And here is why Caitlin comes out of this looking stronger, not weaker. She did not force a response. She did not create a scene. She did not feed the chaos. She stayed focused. She stayed composed. She kept competing. And that matters because in a moment like this, the calmest person in the storm usually ends up looking like the strongest person in the room. While everybody else was debating the clip, Caitlin looked like the one person who understood the fastest way to answer noise is to control the floor. And that is my biggest takeaway from all of this. I do not think this one clip proves every wild theory flying around online, but I do think it exposed something real. It exposed how fragile the energy around this team already feels. It exposed how quickly anything involving Caitlin Clark turns into a full-scale battle online. And most importantly, it exposed that by day 2, Caitlin did not look rattled. She looked like the player dictating everything. And that is the part people inside that gym had to feel immediately. Because it is one thing to deal with Caitlin Clark, the headline. It is another thing to deal with Caitlin Clark, the force. So now the Fever have a real challenge in front of them. Not just winning games, managing the spotlight, managing the chemistry, managing what happens when every tiny moment becomes content and every camp clip becomes a referendum on the team. Because if this is how loud it already is before the season even starts, imagine what happens once the first real adversity hits. That is when we find out whether this was just a weird camp moment or the first sign that something underneath this team is already unstable. So now I want to hear from you. Did Raven Johnson really disrespect Caitlin Clark, or is this whole thing being blown out of proportion?
Today, we are
back, ladies and gentlemen. After waiting all off season, biting our nails, waiting, putting our ear to the door. Are they going to get a CBA deal done? Are we going to have a 2026 season? After the CBA deal was done, the next order of business, watching Caitlin Clark ball out on FIBA. I'll take that MVP, please and thank you.
Clark, a dig
Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever's new camp footage really does change everything, because this does not look like a team getting ready for a season. It looks like a team sending a warning.
So we are into day number 2 of the Indiana Fever training camp. And we've seen a little bit of footage, and we've seen what the clear focus of the Indiana Fever is going to be on this year. But anyway, we've got to talk a little bit about this right here. And the Indiana Fever clearly going into training camp are focusing on the defensive end. You've seen it's how they've started all the trainings. This was my funniest thing, was seeing Caitlin Clark doing a dribbling warm-up.
And the scary part is, it is not just Caitlin Clark. Yes, the passes are back. Yes, the deep threes are dropping. Yes, the swagger is obvious. But what is really jumping out from this footage is something bigger. Indiana suddenly looks deeper, tougher, and way more complete than the team that came up short last year. And if that is true, the rest of the WNBA has a serious problem, because this was always the real question, not whether Caitlin Clark would return, not whether she would be healthy enough to play. The real question was whether she would still look like Caitlin Clark. Would the timing be there? Would the confidence be there? Would the insane read still show up in real speed, with defenders flying around her and no time to think?
History has already been made. Before a game has been played, Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever cementing their status as must-see TV. The cash cow, the money maker, the golden goose, the golden ticket, the savior of women's basketball. Yeah, we're going there. Caitlin Clark, her games will be made available. All 44 games will be made available through national TV, national subscriptions, so on and so forth.
Because being healthy is one thing, being dangerous is something else. And from the first camp clips, Caitlin does not look careful. She does not look limited. She does not look like someone easing back into rhythm. She looks dangerous again. You can see it in the passes immediately, not the safe ones, not the easy ones. I am talking about those one-handed lasers and no-look feeds that make you stop the clip and ask how she even saw that. There was even that pass to Maisha Hines-Allen where the ball got there so fast. The reaction basically said it all. That is not someone testing her body. That is someone trusting her instincts at full speed.
Come on, man. Caitlin going to work out here, dog. Love it. And then I saw this clip. Look at, watch this. Caitlin throw a nice pass down to Allen, and then watch how Allen turn around and look at Caitlin. Look at it. And she turned around looking like, man, what? I didn't think that was coming so fast. What was that? Look, all she can do is smile. I'm getting this for the rest of the season? Oh, I'm cooking. I'm cooking. Look at that smile. Beautiful work. Now,
and that is when this whole thing starts to feel different. Because when Caitlin Clark is fully trusting her instincts, Indiana's offense changes shape. The floor gets bigger, defenses panic earlier, shooters get cleaner looks, cutters have more room, bigs get easier finishes. One player's confidence starts changing everything around her, and then come the threes. That is the part people are going to obsess over, and honestly, they should.
She had players playing what's your last name defense, because all they were doing was seeing her, the back of her jersey, like, come on, dog. Caitlin Clark be out here cooking, man. Come on. Knocking it down from the top. Look at these consecutive threes, man. This is beautiful work. Come on, man. Now, one thing I am paying attention to is how she's doing the 1-2 step. I wonder if she works on the grabbing it 2 feet, plant, and just shooting it for a quicker three. I wonder if she work on that.
Because it is not just that she is making them. It is how she is making them. Off movement, off the dribble, with a hand up, from deep enough to bend the defense before the possession even starts. That is not a player trying to find rhythm. That is a player who already found it, But here is where the story gets scary for the rest of the league. This is no longer just about Caitlin Clark looking good. It is about the fact the roster around her suddenly makes a lot more sense. Indiana did not just keep talent this offseason, they kept belief. And that matters more than people realize. Kelsey Mitchell could have left. She had every reason to. She had the season, the production, and the value to test the market. Instead, she came back. And when she talked about it, she did not make it sound like a business move. She made it sound personal. She talked about family, about the locker room, about the relationships. That tells you everything.
I think that's where I grew the most, if I'm honest. It was at a time where, like I said, I mean, it sounds cliche and it sounds boring, like the same song and dance, but this place was empty for a long time when I first started my career here. And I knew what it was like to connect with the fans on a personal level because, we didn't have as much, leeway to, really engage. And so me being outside was just me being a family person, me being a person, me being a human, really, because at the time we didn't have that many fans. And so the fans that did come out and support, it meant a lot to me. And it was just a way of showing appreciation, really, man. I wouldn't trade it in because it kind of made me get to this point in my career, but I wouldn't be anybody without that.
Players do not talk like that when they think a team has hit its ceiling. They talk like that when they believe something real is building. And Mitchell coming back is massive because her fit with Clark is one of the hardest things in the league to guard. If a defense sells out to stop Caitlin, Mitchell attacks downhill and punishes them. If a defense starts worrying about Mitchell's pressure, Clark gets more space, cleaner reads, and easier looks. It is a brutal combination when it is clicking. Last year, you saw flashes. This year, it looks like Indiana is chasing the full version. Then there is Aaliyah Boston, and honestly, this might be the most important part of the whole thing. Because while Clark bends the game, Boston steadies it. Indiana did not just keep Boston, they locked her in like a franchise pillar. And that matters because every real contender needs someone who can survive ugly basketball. Boston is that player. She settles possessions, she owns the interior, she absorbs contact, she cleans up chaos. Clark might be the one stretching the defense until it breaks, but Boston is the reason the whole thing does not fall apart when the game gets physical. And in the playoffs, that matters more than highlights. Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham coming back matter too, and not just because of shooting. Continuity matters, trust matters, familiarity matters. Indiana is not starting from zero here. They already know how to play off Clark. They already understand the pace, the spacing, and the movement. That is why the footage looks sharp already. This team is not introducing itself. It is accelerating. But the biggest shift might be this. Last year, Indiana had talent. What they did not always have was enough force when the game got nasty. And that is exactly where this offseason starts looking smart. Monique Billings gives them pace, rebounding, communication, and a front court piece that actually fits the way Clark wants to play. She runs, she finishes, she gives them another reliable target in motion. She looks like someone who can immediately make life easier for everybody else. And then you add Myisha Hines-Allen. That is where the tone changes, because Hines-Allen brings something Indiana badly needed: weight, edge, resistance. She is the kind of player who makes games feel uncomfortable for the other team. And that matters because playoff basketball is not just about skill. It is about who can still function when the game gets rough, slow, and physical. Last year, Indiana had skill. This year, they might have skill and bite. That is a huge difference. Even the rookie storylines tell you something is changing. People tried to turn Raven Johnson into drama almost immediately, but that felt like internet nonsense more than anything real. The more interesting part is what she actually brings on the floor: defense, pressure, activity, the ability to make life harder on opposing guards without constantly giving away cheap fouls. That is useful right now. And then there is Justine Pizzot, who is quietly becoming one of those camp names people keep bringing up. The size stands out. The length stands out. But the real reason she is getting attention is because she looks more playable than expected. Active defensively, disruptive, recovering, contesting. If Indiana gets one more real wing piece than people saw coming, this team gets even deeper. And that leads to the biggest point of the whole video. Stephanie White is not coaching this team like she is trying to create a fun offense around a superstar. She is coaching like she thinks this team can actually win. The emphasis on defense, communication, and consistency is not subtle. And that is what makes all of this more than just camp hype. Because when you combine White's structure with Clark's creativity, Indiana starts looking like a team that can hurt you in every phase. Not just in highlights, in habits, in pace, in pressure, in depth. And that brings us to the real reason this footage matters. It is not because the clips are flashy. It is because the clips are starting to prove something. Clark looks fully back. The core stayed together. The front court looks tougher. The depth looks better. The defensive identity looks more serious. And for the first time, Indiana does not just look exciting, they look complete. That is the word, complete. And that is exactly what they were not last year. So when Caitlin Clark says she thinks Indiana will be the favorite to win it all, that suddenly does not sound like empty confidence. It sounds like a team showing you exactly how it sees itself. Personally, I think that is the biggest shift of all. The Fever do not look happy to be part of the conversation anymore. They look like they are trying to own it. So yes, this new camp footage changes everything. Not because practice clips guarantee banners, not because social media always tells the truth, but because for the first time, Indiana looks like a team where the talent, the chemistry, the toughness, and the belief are all lining up at once. And when that happens, contenders stop looking theoretical. They start looking real. If you are still watching, drop Fever Ready in the comments. And tell me this, what was Indiana's smartest offseason move?